So you're an aspiring music producer that records their own songs from home. But sometimes you have trouble turning your ideas into finished songs. You haven't been releasing music consistently. Instead, all you have is a bunch of unfinished demos just sitting on your computer. So I'm going to show you how to finish every song that you make. I released 50 songs in 1 year. That's just under one song a week. And the year before that, I had released less than 5 complete songs. So I've increased my output of music by 1000%. So why can it seem so difficult to finish songs? When you come up with an idea for a song, you get a spike of motivation. So initially, developing that idea feels really fun and almost effortless. But I think many artists can relate to the feeling of losing that motivation a couple days down the line. And at that point, it's a lot more difficult to sit back down and work on the song. This is often the reason we don't end up finishing our songs. Hypothetically, if you had infinite motivation, right, it wouldn't be very difficult to finish songs because you just sit down and continue working on the song indefinitely until it was finished. I think this is where some artists make the mistake of thinking that they just need more motivation. But we have to accept the reality that motivation is fleeting and will always run out. I've found a far better approach to this issue. So instead of trying to delay the inevitable and somehow extend that window of motivation, we should just decrease the amount of time that it takes us to create a song. This is a much more controllable variable. So for example, let's say on average you lose motivation after 3 days. All we have to do is finish the song within that 3-day window. And if we finish the song within 2 days, 1 day, or 3 hours, that's even better. So you might think this is like crazy or unrealistic, but I promise, by using the strategies that I'm about to show you, this is very much achievable. Last year, after discovering these concepts, I recorded an entire full-length album within 2 weeks. So I made one song every day for 2 weeks. Making a song is like having a girlfriend. So when you first meet a new girl, she seems super awesome, she's really attractive, and you get excited and you want to spend a lot of time with her. This is just like motivation. But after you've been with the girl for months, right, and the honeymoon stage is over, you realize that she's just not that great. You know, she's kind of annoying, you get a bit bored, and you no longer enjoy the time that you spend with her. This is how it feels when you've been working on the same song for over a week. I think that our relationship with our art should be less like a marriage and more like a one-night stand that we look back on fondly. In order to finish more songs, we should maximize our enjoyment throughout the entire process. Disciplining yourself to try and finish a song that you started weeks ago is not a very enjoyable experience. Discipline is an extremely important skill, but if you use it in a way that degrades your relationship with your art, I think it can be very dangerous. I find that the songs that seem to just flow out of me very fast and effortlessly, they normally turn out to be the best ones, and they always have the most positive energy attached to them. As music producers, we obviously love making music, so I think sometimes we subconsciously delay the act of finishing a song, because finishing represents the end of this music making session, this fun activity. When we delay the act of finishing, we're essentially edging ourselves. Edging might be fun, but you won't end up making any babies this way. And by babies, I mean complete songs. So as artists, we need to metaphorically bust a lot quicker. I urge you to be aware of this subconscious behavior and eliminate the fear of finishing. Because instead of post-nut clarity, you'll just be hit with a sense of accomplishment. Now we've identified that making music faster and finishing songs before our motivation or honeymoon stage ends is a viable strategy to begin finishing more songs. But how do we actually make songs in less time? So to finish songs a lot quicker, we have to make them more simple. I've never listened back to one of my songs and thought, oh, that's too simple. But for about half the songs I've ever made, I look back on them and regret adding all this complicated shit. Crazy hi-hat rolls, reverse 808 slides, and counter melodies that don't even fit. The key is to not spend any time on this unnecessary shit. Bro, I wish I had this realization sooner. If I knew these things, I would have made progress so much faster as a young music producer. So that's why I've been building a music consistency program for aspiring music producers. You might be interested in that, so that's the top link in the description. I'm not telling you to make boring, unoriginal music. We know innovation and creativity are obviously important, but we shouldn't spend any time on this extra shit until the song is 90% complete. So what things should we spend our time on when making a song? Do the bare minimum. I want to introduce you to the concept of an MVP, minimum viable product. In the world of business, an MVP is a version of a product with just enough features to be usable by early customers, without them thinking it's shit. As a music producer, your song is essentially a product that you give to your listeners. So before adding any extra features, we must first create an MVS, minimum viable song. So think, what's the bare minimum for a piece of music to be considered a song? What components do we absolutely need? So this can vary slightly depending on your genre, but for the type of music I make, you need chords from a sample or a guitar, drums, just kick, hi-hat, snare, vocals, and maybe bass, right? Sometimes the chords will actually have enough low frequency in them already. So I would call these things high leverage components. So really, I only have three: chords, drums, and vocals. The idea is to finish these components before adding anything else. A couple of months ago, my output of music decreased significantly, and only now do I realize the huge mistake that was causing that decrease. I wasn't prioritizing these high leverage components. So since the quality of my music was at an all-time high, I had convinced myself that it was necessary for every future song to include snare rolls, a pre-chorus, and a guitar solo. These are not high leverage components. My ego had grown too large, and I deluded myself into thinking that doing the bare minimum was beneath me. I had set way too high a standard for what I considered a finished song. When you have to include a pre-chorus and a guitar solo in every song, they'll obviously take a lot longer to create. Therefore, the likelihood of losing motivation halfway through making the song will be a lot higher. Do not make the same mistake that I did. It's cost me months of progress. So lower the bar for yourself and just focus on first creating a minimum viable song. You can still add cool shit like a guitar solo, but only after you've finished the high leverage necessary components. Quantity leads to quality, but obsessing over quality won't lead you to either. Before I understood the value of high leverage components, this one thing kept happening to me. I'd show one of my unfinished songs to a family member. They'd say it was cool. Then I'd go back into my room and continue working on the song for hours. But stupidly, I'd only work on the low leverage, unnecessary components. Then once again, I'd show the song to the same family member, and they wouldn't even hear a difference. I had worked for hours, adding hi-hat rolls, 808 slides, and sound effects, and they couldn't even tell that I had changed a thing. So this is an easy way to identify low leverage components. Just ask yourself, would a non-musician even notice if I changed this component? If they wouldn't notice, it's low leverage, and you shouldn't spend any time on it. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. Try and visualize the completion of your song as a progress bar. The bar must reach 100% for the song to be finished. Now, different components of the song will result in different percentages. Let's say if you spend 15 minutes recording vocals, the progress bar will go up by 25%. But if you spend 15 minutes adding reverb to your snare drum, the progress bar will only go up by 2%. This is the concept of ROI, return on investment. In this example, your investment is time, and your return is the amount of progress towards finishing the song. So a high leverage component can also be called a high ROI component. So the best strategy for finishing more songs is by completing the highest ROI components first. You can get the progress bar to 90% with only 4 components: chords, vocals, drum sounds, and bass. I say drum sounds specifically because you can spend a lot of time making complicated drum patterns that don't actually result in much progress. Another reason to do these high leverage / high ROI components first is that once the song is at 90% completion and you can see the finish line, you get another little bump of motivation. Then the last 10% comes a lot easier. I hope you can see how powerful it is to identify and prioritize these high leverage components. Now that you've identified the foundational, most high leverage components of your song, the music making process becomes so much more straightforward and actionable. Instead of sitting down with the vague idea of just making music, now you have a list of tasks. Find a sample and get it in time. Select drum sounds. Record vocals, and then add bass. The more specific, the better. I promise you'll get way more shit done with this structured process. Now, a bonus tip is to actually write these tasks down on a notepad. Keep that notepad on your desk, and it will serve as a step-by-step guide on how to finish the song really fast. I would strongly recommend completing one task at a time. If you keep switching between different tasks, you will divert your attention, and the components of your song will end up being far more shit. Now, if you want to execute these tasks like a fucking beast and go on to destroy the competition, you need to harness extreme levels of focus. Here are some advanced tactics. Don't even touch your phone until you've finished cooking up for the day. No joke, your phone is a manifestation of Satan and is draining your brain's energy. Just turn off all notifications, put your phone on silent, and do not disturb. Now wake up as early as possible and start making music immediately. The times when I've finished the most songs were those weeks when I'd wake up at 4 AM and within 45 seconds have my headphones on and FL Studio open. Now don't eat any food before or during your session. Digestion requires a portion of your brain's energy, and we need to maintain maximum cognitive abilities to channel into our music. Please remember, you can't polish a piece of shit. If the foundational high leverage components of your song are inherently mid, no amount of mixing or effects will make them any less mid. It's in your best interest to focus exclusively on creating the high leverage components of your song. Then once it's at 90% and you know whether or not it has serious potential, then you can add the creative extra elements as a cherry on top. Make your songs in as little time as possible before your motivation runs out. Do this by prioritizing the most high leverage, necessary components of your song. Adopt these music making philosophies, and I promise you will begin to finish 10 times more songs. This will lead to you releasing more consistently and eventually building a large fan base. If you found this video valuable, then I think you would be a perfect fit for the music consistency program that I'm currently building. Go click the link in the description and check it out. Alright, see you, bro.